Hello, hello, hello. It's me again, the snarky juror, back for day 2 in the New Mexico versus Alec Baldwin case for the accidental shooting of not only the other director of the movie, Rust, Joel Sousa, but the accidental shooting and fatal shooting of Helena Hutchins. So we're going to, yesterday was day 1. And it started off with um, the judge instructing the jury on what to expect. And then it was opening statements. And then we had 4 witnesses. And we will continue with witness number 4 because defense didn't have a chance to cross. Marissa Popel, she's a crime scene tech. And she did a lot of stuff with the bullets and stuff. So let's make sure our mic is on, Susan, because there's a gap in yesterday's recording in the afternoon. No, we don't want snarky right now. We want this one. And we'll go to that one and take it off of pause. The jury hasn't come in yet. I figured, well, I can run off at the mouth while we're waiting. But I have another computer sitting here. And I did something. I forget what I was doing while I was doing this. I can't do 2 things at once. I know this. And a commercial came on loud. So I muted first one thing and then I tried to mute the other, or I did it the other way around or something. Anyway, it was a mess. So when I got back to this, I did not realize that my mic was still muted. I'm going to go ahead and move this forward some. Yeah, we're very early. Setting up a whiteboard.
Is that fair?
Is the jury in? Here they come. Okay. They were doing a lot of preset. Yes, I think his brother has something to help with his hearing. I've heard other people complain about some of the
You're missing a chair?
characters.
Maybe the cleaning people.
But so far, I enjoy the judge and I enjoy the prosecution. The defense, on the other hand,
Yeah, I thought you were in the back too. Steve gave
I think they're making sure everybody can see the board. But I don't know.
take more than a bathroom break or whatever, and you just need to be patient. We're trying to move the trial along, okay? So, thank you. All right, before, and I'm sorry, This probably isn't the most appropriate time, but media in the war room, or whatever we call it, one more cup, and everybody is not allowed to bring any liquids of any kind whatsoever. My staff is, and our county people are not going to be picking up trash that you all could pick up. Okay, and that also means downstairs in the jury assembly room. So one more cup, one more water. Let's just have some manners on picking up after ourselves, okay? All right, sorry I had to bring that up right now.
Is this woman still under oath, Judge?
Yes, she's still under oath. Is that okay, or do you want me to?
That's fine.
All right.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Good morning, Investigator Pop.
Good morning.
Judge.
All right, why don't we look at these now?
Okay.
Notes from the jury, I think.
Are you keeping track?
Stop muting the mic. I'm the only one allowed to do that. I want to know what's going on, too. Yes, my microphone is still live. I'm not having a good day so far. I'm whipped for some reason. I wanted to double check the spelling of her name, and sometimes Court TV puts it up. Excuse me, but I'm not seeing it so far. Merissa. I don't know if there's two R's and two S's or not. Checking to see what my doggie is doing. I think those are court provided, the hearing thing. Just write them down. Yeah, that's okay with something. And I got to be better about not drinking. So all you see is my cups and water bottles and stuff.
Okay, good morning again.
Good morning.
So we saw a lot of pictures yesterday and heard about some search warrants that were conducted that you were present for. And I'd like to sort of divide what we do this morning into sort of two categories, the firearm and the ammunition. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. As to the firearm, I think where you left off yesterday is ultimately that firearm was destroyed in the testing. Fair?
Not destroyed, but broken.
Yeah, the word broken, that
Oh, come on.
I think I heard you use yesterday. It's fair to say that the firearm can't be put back
It's
in the original
broken.
condition that it was in at the time of the incident. Is that fair?
I believe it could be put back together with replaced parts. But as far as, in my terms, destroyed meaning no longer in existence, it is not the case.
Right. No, of course. The gun and its broken parts still exist, right?
Yes.
But as being part of the investigation and entrusted with the evidence in this case, the gun will never be in exactly the same condition that it was in on October 21st. Fair?
Yes.
Then I want to talk to you now about the ammunition piece of this. And the investigation into the source of the lethal bullet in this case led you to executing a search warrant at Seth Kenny's prop house, right?
Yes.
And you knew that he had provided star line brass silver ammunition to the set, correct?
Yes.
What you were investigating at that time was whether it was starline brass silver and only dummies, or if it was starline brass silver and he also had live ammunition in his prop house, correct?
Yes.
And you did know that Seth Kenny kept live ammunition at his prop house, correct?
I believe at that time we were looking for live ammunition. Yes.
Right. But you were aware of whether you found the exact correct live ammunition that matched perfectly the live ammunition on the movie set. You did ultimately recover some live ammunition, and you had probable cause to get a search warrant, right?
Yes.
And did that concern you that at a prop house that's sending out ammunition for movie sets, that there was both live ammunition and dummy rounds?
Yes.
No, she's quite happy.
So I want to take a step back for a second. When you go out to collect evidence on a day like October 21st, 2021, you bring with you your Nikon camera, right?
Yes.
You have gloves with you, right?
Yes.
And in a perfect world, you're trying to get to the evidence and the state of the evidence as quickly as possible. Fair?
Yes.
And so you did respond to this scene, and the first item that you collected that ended up broken was the prop gun, right?
Yes.
And when you got there, you knew that someone had touched it without gloves on, right?
Yes.
You knew that when somebody collected it, they didn't take a photo, right?
Yes.
But you did take that into evidence, and that was sort of the first item in this case that you were collecting and entrusted to keep vouchered and maintained for the course of this investigation. Is that fair?
Yes.
And it was a critical piece of evidence. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And so as you continue after that moment into the
He's so
scene,
accusatory.
you're looking for additional evidence. Fair?
Yes.
And physical evidence is critical evidence in an investigation, right?
Yes.
And I just realized this is what I hated about Lally. He's not just asking questions, he's testifying. He's not encouraging her to tell him her state of mind, what she was looking for. Yes, he's leading. In cross-examination, I understand you can lead, but I hate his style.
Because, witnesses and their memories can change. Witnesses can say one thing one day and another day, but physical evidence pretty much stays the same,
I'm
right?
just objecting to a compound question.
Physical evidence stays the same, right?
Yes.
And you logged all the evidence you collected in this case?
Yes.
And all the evidence collected by law enforcement in this case was ultimately logged by you.
Yes.
And by logging it, you also make it available for the defense so that we have visibility into what in fact you collected.
Yes.
And one way you figure out as you're going through a scene what evidence is relevant is you can talk to your fellow officers, right?
Yes.
You can talk to witnesses, right?
I do not. As part of I'm not an investigator, I'm a technician. So my concern is with the physical evidence. I don't do any of the interviews.
No, I know you don't do formal interviews, but in this case, you did talk to Seth Kenny, right? You're not forbidden to speak to somebody who's at a scene.
No, I do believe we had some casual conversations, yes.
Well, but there are times where a witness could say in your presence, hey, that glove is very important.
I hate his attitude. If you're not saying what I want you to say exactly how I want you to say it, yeah, well, but.
And they would say it to you in Corporal Hancock, and you
I
would know,
object to the hypothetical.
Overruled.
as I was saying, you went to Corporal Hancock could be at a scene, and somebody could say, hey, that glove was used, and you as a technician would say, okay, that witness is pointing out that glove, that could be important. I'm going to note that, and once I confer with Corporal Hancock, potentially take that into custody, to take an inventory.
Yes, that's something that could happen, yes.
And the other thing that you do is, and you talked about this a little bit on your direct, which is you can learn information and decide what to forensically test. Fair?
Yes.
So in this case, for example, Mr. Baldwin's clothes had red on them, and you tested it for blood, right?
Yes.
And it turned out it was movie set blood, right?
Yes.
Meaning it wasn't actually blood.
Correct.
Right? Okay. So as you continue through the scene, you get to the prop cart, and you find the shell casing. And I thought this was on just a moment ago.
All right, Joe, come on. We need to fix something.
Didn't quite preset as well as you thought.
You're doing what to the document?
Yeah, this is that.
I don't. I'm surprised how quickly I've got a dislike of the lawyer. It baffles me.
This in the way.
Okay.
It was up there. It was up there that you had a problem.
And I'm putting State's Exhibit 29.
I'm just a minute, Mr. Spiro. I'm wondering if
Oh.
you're trying to figure this out right now.
His whole demeanor is accusatory. Like, this crime scene tech did something very, very wrong. You would admit this, wouldn't you? That would be fair, wouldn't it? You allowed them to destroy the gun so that defense couldn't do anything with it. It started off so well yesterday.
Good job.
Thank you very much. Thank you both.
Mhm.
And I'm showing you Exhibit 29, and in a moment I'll show you Exhibit 28. And this is the shell casing that you recovered in this case that housed the lethal projectile, correct?
Yes.
And so, and in fact, you were able to then recover the actual bullet piece of the ammunition because you learned from Mr. Baldwin that it was at the hospital with Mr. Souza, right?
Yes.
And so you were then able to go to the hospital,
Bullet piece.
and we heard from that officer and collect the other piece of the ammunition, correct?
Yes.
And that's an example, right, of learning something from a witness and making a decision based on it, right?
No,
Yes.
Okay.
no,
And as to the prop gun,
don't feed into him.
because you learned from Mr. Baldwin that he just manipulated the hammer, you didn't test the trigger of the firearm, correct?
I'm sorry. You're asking if I myself tested the.
Trigger. Yeah.
I'm not qualified to do that, so it was not completed by myself.
Well, fair to say that because you learned that from Mr. Baldwin, it impacted the way that you evaluated the evidence. in this
I
case.
object to the form of question. Can we approach?
Because you knew what Mr. Baldwin said. She's a technician. She's given something and just enough information to focus what she needs to lean into. Oh, oh.
You
You?
spoke to Mr. Baldwin at the scene, correct?
Briefly, yes.
Okay. And he informed you that he just manipulated the hammer and that impacted your future testing,
I don't recall what he exactly stated on the scene.
Okay. Well, let me just approach you for a moment.
See if this refreshes your memory.
We'll provide you.
He's a bully. That's
We're
what
also gonna need, well, while they're looking for that, why don't we approach?
that just occurred to me. He's a bully. He's not just a good lawyer because he wants to get the witness to respond to what he's focused in on. He's a bully because he wants the witness to say what he wants them to say and how he wants them to say it. And him charging up there without even showing prosecution. I mean, that's the courtesy they do. Oh, may I approach your honor to show such and such? Well, first you're supposed to show the opposite side to make sure there's no objection. And then they go on to the witness. At least that's how it's done most of the time.
Page in line, please.
Yep.
I think she was just telling them make sure the page shows. Page online, please. What are they waiting for? Because she said, well, while they're waiting, may I approach? May we approach or something like that. I just noticed on my other computer, Emily D. Baker's YouTube.
Yep.
I'll say it in a minute.
Page
I remember.
3, lines 9 through 11. And I'm showing the witness. Does this, and as you can see from up here, this is a lapel camera from 1021, a lapel recording from.
So
You see this answer here?
she looks confused to me.
Yes, I see it.
And so,
She
does
must have
that
been
refresh your
recorded.
recollection that Mr. Baldwin told you that he cocked the gun?
I don't recall that conversation.
Okay. But you don't dispute that it happened?
No, I don't dispute it. I just don't recall it.
So did
She doesn't recall it. How can it affect anything?
but when you made the request,
Objection, let's approach.
He's trying so hard to elicit exactly what he wants. What I was saying, what caught my attention was Emily D. Baker asked the question, the Alec Baldwin trial, will he testify? Will Hannah? I think Hannah will. But it wouldn't surprise me if Alec did because, he's the boss. He knows better than everybody. He wouldn't listen to lawyers who say, it's usually not good. So it wouldn't surprise me if he does. This witness has already said, I don't recall that. I don't care if you show it to me in black and white off of somebody else, the transcript of what's on somebody's body cam. Is that what they call it? But you don't dispute it. In other words, I'm right, aren't I? I wish I could read lips. The way she talks, it'd be hard to read her lips because she doesn't move them very much. She talks very, very low key, and her lips don't move a lot. Whereas me, you could read my lips from the other side of the football field, okay? I'm going to have to invest in a fly swatter. Sometimes when I let the doggie out, I just leave the back door open so she can come in when she wants. And then I go close it and give her her cookie. She gets treats for going outside and doing her business. And a lot of times I go out with her, but when I'm trying to get other things done, sometimes I don't, especially at night, because she loves it. After the neighborhood dogs are all in the house, then, which is usually around 11 o'clock, when I let her out then, I leave the door open and let her stay out there as long as she wants. She loves it outside. Another question from the jury. I wonder if is she going to put these on the record? Or is she going to wait until break in order to... Some, if that's from the jury, in the Depp v. Heard case, no, what am I thinking? Did they have questions? That was during deliberation. Never mind.
Just to go back to the spent shell casing for a moment, was the spent shell casing collected from inside of the church or on the cart?
On the cart.
And
Good question. Well,
another question is, do you know if Mr. Baldwin's fingerprints or DNA were on the trigger of the firearm?
I do not know those results off the top of my head.
Okay. Is there a better witness that may come in to tell the jury that?
Yes.
Okay.
he would know
And
this.
you were interacting as we were left off with Mr. Baldwin at the scene and spoke to him, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And after speaking to him, did you in fact test the hammer of the? Did you in fact request to test the hammer of the firearm for prints and DNA?
Same objection. That doesn't lay the foundation. It has to go to why she did what she did.
It's the first question, and then I'll ask why she did or didn't.
Overruled.
Did you, after speaking to Mr. Baldwin,
Mm-hmm.
did you then test the hammer of the gun for?
He's not
DNA or
snarky, he's
fingerprints,
snotty.
or request that it be done?
The request that was made was after a conversation with the lab, which essentially was asking them what assistance they could provide. I believe the request was made for latents and DNA. I don't recall the specifics of what on the item they were going to specifically test. I don't know their requirements or standards when they receive a firearm. Most labs would do the testing on the entirety of the gun, but they might break it down further and do just the trigger, just the hammer, just the rough areas. I'm not certain. That's a question for their lab.
Right, but I'm just asking you, Investigator Papa, when you made the request, did you specify, given what we've learned now, we really want you to check the hammer specifically? Did you make that request?
I don't recall specifically requesting that.
And when you got to the prop cart, you could not tell from looking at it whether or not anybody had altered or moved any of the evidence, correct?
Correct.
And if somebody did, that would be a pretty serious problem in a case like this, wouldn't it?
It would be a problem in any case, yes.
Did you ever interview or review any interviews of Sarah Zachary?
No.
He's not
But
in
one
it.
thing that you did know at this time for certain is that you were looking for Starline brass silver 45 ammunition, correct?
At that time, no, we did not know that that's what we were looking for.
When did you learn that?
That was learned later on once realizing that all of our suspected live rounds were Starline brass with a silver primer.
So all of the live rounds at the movie set were Starline brass, nickel primer, live, right?
Yes.
And this idea came up early in the investigation that what if somebody sabotaged the set and put those live rounds there? Do you recall that?
Yes.
And that was quickly dismissed in this case as not something that law enforcement thought to be realistic. Fair?
Yes.
But you also needed to investigate whether somebody from outside of the Rust set was responsible for injecting these live ammunition into the Rust set. Fair?
Yes.
And so you continue to investigate that as this case proceeds, and you executed search warrants, correct?
Not myself personally investigating it, but I believe that was something that was being investigated.
So, we looked at, and I'm just going to show you Defense A1. And what's this a picture of?
These were some of the rounds that were located loose on top of the cart.
And these live rounds being loose on top of the cart, I mean, you don't know whether those live rounds were there at the time of the incident, right?
Correct.
And again, these were all Starline brass, nickel primer, live, correct?
Yes.
And you were also not certain at times when you would collect rounds whether or not they were live or dummies.
Correct.
Some rounds you submitted to the FBI to process to figure that out.
Yes.
And if we could look at State's Exhibit 27, can you tell me what that is?
This is a photograph of the silver primers on the 2 rounds that were later discovered to be live that were on top of the cart.
There were 6 live
And
rounds.
so in this box
In
you
total.
then collect, which is Defense A2. Right?
Way
What was
too
your
many live
understanding of this box?
My understanding was this was the box handed to Lieutenant Benavidez that was being pulled from at the time to load the firearm. I was then placed in his unit and later collected by myself.
And when you looked inside of that box, State's Exhibit 17, what did you find?
These were the rounds inside of the box.
And can you tell the jury the significance of that round?
Yes, this round with the silver primer was a live round.
But you don't know whether somebody was rifling through this box and just missed one, do you?
No.
And you also showed the jury that these Starline brass nickel live rounds were found in other places on the set, right? This is State's Exhibit 16.
Yes.
And what is this?
This is a close-up of one of the gun holsters that has a live round in it.
Okay. And State's Exhibit 15.
This is a close-up of the gun holster that was belonging to Mr. Baldwin that has a live round in it.
And was then 15 this is 15. Was 16 the one that was the other actor, Jason Eccles?
Yes.
Okay. And so Mr. Eccles, another actor on the set, turns out that he, as he acted, as he performed, had a live bullet in his bandolier, correct?
Yes.
And you have no reason to think Mr. Eccles had any idea that was there, right?
Correct.
Your working theory, as you evaluated the ammunition and looked at the similarity between the Starline nickel live and the Starline nickel dummies, is that they could have been easily commingled. Fair?
Yes.
In other words, somebody could have mistaken one for the other, right?
Yes.
And so when you conduct then a search warrant on the church, you find additional evidence, right?
Yes.
And you talked about search warrants in your direct examination, but I just want to orient the jury a little bit to what that is. A search warrant is where you go to a court and you swear out a warrant, and the warrant tells you what you can search for inside of a dwelling or a location, right?
Yes.
And you tell the court what information you have and what you'd like to look for. Fair enough?
Yes.
And unlike somebody sort of, walking into the precinct.
I'm sorry, but I'm tired. Yesterday, he gave us a history of guns in movies. And went on and on. Today, he's teaching about search warrants. I think he missed his calling. I think what he really wants to be is a teacher, not a lawyer, not to get the witness to give the answers, to do the explaining. He wants to do it all himself. No wonder he's Baldwin's lawyer, because Baldwin wants to do it all himself too.
Voluntarily giving you evidence. One of the things about a search warrant is you don't have to tell the person you're coming before you go, right?
Yes.
Surprise, here you go.
So as you're going into execute the search warrant on the church, and the warrants in this case, you did discuss that with Corporal Hancock, correct?
Yes, I believe we had some brief conversations about the search warrants.
And the warrant for the church, it didn't indicate that there was any specific crime you were looking for. Is that fair?
I don't recall.
And so when you went inside of the church, you were looking for evidence, right?
Yes.
And you remember, as you ended your direct examination yesterday, Ms. Morrissey, the prosecutor, said, you keep all of this evidence so that if anyone wants to bring any evidence, you have it, right?
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things you found in the church was the shot list for the dead, right?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall collecting paperwork inside the church?
Yes.
Okay. And
Your Honor, I've already indicated to Mr. Spiro that I object to some of these, so we can approach now. I wish we had dealt with it previously.
no, I think I can just lay it and introduce it.
Well, she said she objected.
Yeah. You can't just discount somebody's objection. You're not the judge. How dare you interrupt him? And he was on a roll. I'm nosy. Otherwise, I'd be skimming right through this. I really don't want to see that. I want to see what they're talking about up there. Yeah, thank you. Because body language says a lot. Well, what kind of favor is he asking for? Because I'm a star, don't you know? Was he one of the technical guys? Maybe he was having trouble with his screen. Describe his expression. Is it arrogant? There's a word, but it's not coming to me. Contemptuous? He's spacing his breathing. Does he have a medical condition? Or is he keeping himself calm? Because under other circumstances, he would have already blown a gasket like he did on the set constantly. Do as I say, as I do it, faster, faster. I hope that comes up again. I saw that in the Hannah Gutierrez one trial. She wasn't loading the gun fast enough for him. They'd done a shot. She had to reload, and he was there just hounding her to go faster. Hurry up. You should have a second gun ready to go. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was on meds to keep him calm. And he's practicing breathing to keep him calm. Because I noticed this yesterday. He did the same thing just a few minutes ago. I don't know if he's biting his lips to keep himself from saying something. I don't know if he's biting his lips. It could just be old age quiver. When you get old, lots of weird things happen to you. Okay, I don't want to see him anymore. Oh, well, he told.
Please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court.
Did he ask for a break? Because the guy that Alec talked to walked away from the judge. I'll bet you Alec is the one that requested that break. The jury has to hold it. You heard the judge say something to that effect. Of course, old age messes up with your plumbing system. Come on. I've got a doggie standing in the doorway, wagging her tail. Guess what that means? Can you guess? Can you guess? Yeah, I'm going to let my doggie out. Okay, we're back. Microphone is on. Recording is going. Okay, took that off of pause. I'm back in the corner. They're back at the bar. No wonder lawyers drink so much. time you turn around, they're at the bar. Let me make sure. They do spend a lot of time there. Don't know if the jury is back or not.
I don't have it.
We can't have to switch over to. No, this is good.
Wish I had a bar, but I don't drink any
I've got it.
Maybe seated.
or any less.
Still good morning. Okay. Good morning again. So I'm just going to, now we're going to tech issue or this is. Okay. We left off.
He's not publishing it. I'm just telling him he's going to publish it.
Right.
Well, you have to move for admission.
Okay. So I'm now moving for admission for A3 and A11.
See what I mean?
And wait for the foundation. As you stated on direct, and we're just going to put up states 21. If I can publish that, it's an evidence.
He's gonna worm his way around it. What do you mean I can't do this? Sure I can.
As you testified yesterday, you collected items from the church that you thought were relevant to this case, correct?
Yes.
And some of the things that you thought gave insight into what happened, correct?
Yes.
And including in those was a copy of the script and the shot list, correct?
I believe there was paperwork that was photographed, but I don't believe it was collected.
Okay. Well, I'm going to pass up to the witness what it's marked as A3 and A11.
May I approach, Your Honor? I'm just gonna do it.
And what are those?
It appears to be scene paperwork.
That you collected.
Yes.
And those are fair and accurate photographs?
Yes.
Yeah. Offer them as evidence.
I don't believe that's an adequate foundation.
Overruled.
What more do you want him to do?
But what we discussed at the bench, but I mean, obviously I defer to the court, but I'm relying on the conversation we had.
Well, all right, so they are conditionally admitted pursuant to the discussion up at the bench.
So I'm going to now publish A3. And can you read that last sentence?
Russ Colt cocked quietly now.
And I'm now going to publish 811. Let's see if this will allow me to zoom in focus. Can you read that, or does it not focus right?
I cannot read that.
Okay, I apologize. I'm going to pass it up to the witness. If it's not, oh, it works like this, I guess. Does it? Yeah, it's supposed to focus on its own. It's supposed to autofocus, so this is not my fault. Just so you know.
Right. Nothing's your fault.
Okay. Permission to approach.
He does know how to do it.
Macro on hammer as thumb cocks it. And then line 6 is frontal slow push in on Rust, his hat down, motionless.
Thank you. And you found and photographed these documents in the church in the vicinity of where Miss Hutchins fell, correct?
I believe the first photograph, the first paper was, I don't recall where the second paper was located.
And if we look at states 21,
Can I fast forward?
I'll have that up on the screen just for a moment. When you collected these documents, you thought they were important, correct?
That could be.
When I photographed them, yes.
So I apologize, when you photographed them. And the reason you thought it was important is because you thought it reflected what would have happened in the scene, correct?
I understood that there was a mentioning of a firearm in the paperwork, which is why I thought it was important.
Right, because it's actually just because you thought
Right.
to yourself at the time and that it actually described what he's doing, right?
I believe at the time, yes.
And you said to your fellow officers that you think it's important because it confirms Mr. Baldwin's statements, correct?
I don't recall stating that, but it could be something that I've stated.
And you indicated that you thought it was hers, meaning Ms. Hutchins' paperwork, correct?
I believe that one of those papers does have her name on it, which is why I thought it was hers.
Right. And the other paper that you already testified to, A3, was found around where she fell, correct?
Yes.
That doesn't mean anything.
And it contains the shot list and the script for that day, correct?
I don't know
Objection,
exactly.
Foundation. Sorry.
She's not a script.
So you have laid
Did
the
you-
foundation?
Yeah. Did you believe at the time that what you were looking at may
gotta
have
speed
reflected
him up.
things that were supposed to occur in the church?
Yes.
Hi, baby.
You also recovered Miss Hutchins' cell phone, correct?
At a later date, I believe.
And that was sent to Byron French and the investigation division to extract the cell phone results eventually, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Now, you tried to find video recording in the church, correct?
Yes.
But the video cameras for the scene in question did not record that day, so you were not able to find that. Fair?
They recorded a portion of that day. There was a recording that was
Up
recovered.
until lunch.
And you didn't find any live ammunition in the church.
Yes, there was one live round located inside the church.
There was. Okay. And where was that found?
That was in Mr. Baldwin's holster.
Right. So, right. The bandolier that we were talking about before.
Yes.
Okay. And you have no reason to think that Mr. Baldwin had any idea that was there, right?
Correct.
At that scene, and at this time in the investigation, Detective Kano was in charge, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
So while you're now then leaving the church, and we're going to move on, okay, you have to figure out how ammunition works on a movie set, right?
Yes.
That wasn't something that you were familiar with before the incident in question, right?
Correct.
And you sort of became the subject matter expert on that topic, right?
Yes, I'd say so.
I mean, you were
For
called
the sheriff's
into,
office.
for the sheriff's office, right? But also you'd be called into meetings with Corporal Hancock and the prosecutors and try to educate them on those topics. Isn't that fair?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you weren't running the case, were you?
No.
But you were there to assist not only with the evidence, but to be a specialist on this sort of unique topic. Fair?
Yes.
And again, you said this on direct, but I think it got a little confusing perhaps. But there are never supposed to be live ammunition on a movie set.
Feedback. I know that sound. I was a radio DJ.
Okay, go ahead. Yours is on though, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank you. You understood that there should never be live ammunition on a movie set, right?
Yes.
And the one type of ammunition that occurs on movie sets is blanks, and those are the ones that just go poof, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I'm just showing you 812 that's in evidence, right? And those have a like a crimped top, right?
Yes.
Okay, as opposed to dummy rounds, right? I'm showing you 811, that's in evidence, right? Which look like real bullets, right?
Correct.
And there were different types of dummy rounds, as I think you said on direct. But you can't tell necessarily that a dummy round is a dummy round just by looking at it.
Not always, no.
No, this has
Some
a
dummy
hole in
rounds
it.
have holes in them, right?
Yes.
Others have their primers removed.
Yes.
Some of them do not have holes in the side or their primers removed.
Correct.
Some of them don't make a noise when they're shaken, called Denex rounds.
Yes.
And some dummy rounds look exactly like live rounds, correct?
You back
Yes.
again.
And those look exactly like live ammunition, there.
Yes.
And those type of exact replica dummy rounds were on the set of Rust, right?
Yes.
And those were Seth Kenny's dummy rounds, right?
Yes.
And in terms of identifying dummy rounds by shaking them, right, which is something you talked about on direct, some of them are louder than others, right?
Yes.
Some of them have 1 BB.
Where's he going with this? A dummy round did not kill Helena Hutchins. Why?
2 BBs in them or 3 BBs in them, right?
Yes.
Sometimes if you shake a bullet, you can hear the powder, or because of oxidation, you can hear things inside of a bullet when you shake it, right?
Yes.
And depending on the setting of something would impact the person's ability to hear it. Isn't that fair?
Yes.
So, right, if I shook a dummy round right now in a courtroom in front of a microphone, right, it would probably be, you would be able to hear it. Would you agree?
Yes.
But if people are all moving around in a movie set, you don't know that everybody would be able to hear it. Isn't that fair?
Not everyone, no.
And some dummy rounds don't shake at all. Isn't that also true?
Yes.
The only way to determine definitively is to send them to the FBI and to take apart the dummy round to figure out what the powder is inside of it, right?
The powder inside of a dummy round?
Yeah. I'm
Or the,
moving- I'm
the
moving
ball
on.
bearings?
Well, the ball bearings versus the powder that could be in a live ammunition.
Yes.
Right?
That would be the comparison. Yes.
And so one of the questions that I'm going to ask you is there different grades of gunpowder used in blanks versus live rounds?
I do not know the answer to that question.
And so as you proceed in this case, you are then executing the prop truck search at the scene of Rust, right?
Yes.
So about a week after the incident, approximately, you go back to the setting of Rust and you execute a search warrant on the truck that housed the prop cart that you found the shell casing on, right?
Yes.
And when you went to do that search warrant, it was light outside, right?
Correct.
And you were with your fellow officers, Hancock, Kano, Sergeant Zook was there, correct?
Yes.
And you had a good working relationship with all of these people, right?
Yes.
And Detective Hancock and Kano, signed off on what you collected as detectives involved in this, right?
Yes.
And Sergeant Zook, who was their supervisor, signed off as well. Fair?
Yes.
And there was a witness there that day that assisted law enforcement with the search of the prop truck, right?
Yes.
A man named Seth Kenny.
Correct.
And not only did he assist, he actually was the one that opened the safe, right?
Yes. He had the combination too.
Well, do you know how he got the combination?
He was the owner of the safe.
You sure about that?
That was my understanding.
You collected dozens of guns from the safe, right?
Yes.
And you understood that there were a dozen plus actors, extras, stuntmen that used firearms on the set of Rust.
Yes.
Just like we talked about with Mr. Ackles and his bandolier, right? A lot of these actors may have at one point or another, unbeknownst to them, God forbid, had live ammunition on them, right?
Yes.
And the prop truck, we can look at A13, was a little disorganized. I don't know if it's quite at the level of the cart, but it was a little disorganized, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll just show A14 for completeness.
Had that been entered?
And inside the prop truck, there were boxes,
Well,
right?
that was quick.
Yes.
Boxes of ammunition.
Correct.
And these boxes are sort of, a lot of them are the same shape, make, model, white box, right?
Yes.
And I'm just going to show you 816, which is a close-up. And do you notice one box that looks a little different than the other boxes?
Yes, there is.
And which box is that?
The box in the center, instead of it being stamped, it has handwritten in blue marker, dummy rounds 45 LC.
Right, and I'll just blow up that, which is a State's exhibit, exhibit 19, right?
Yes.
And you don't know who wrote that writing on it, do you?
Seth Kenny.
And if we could look at A22, can you tell us what that is?
Out of context, no, I can't.
Okay, well then we're going to look at A23.
Can you move it up? Thank you. This is the rounds that were inside of that box with the styrofoam insert that were removed.
Okay. And you see that they are star-line brass, nickel dummy rounds, right?
Yes.
And again, the difference between a star-line brass nickel-plated dummy round and a live round is effectively that one has powder inside and the other does not, right?
Yes.
And do you know where all the ones in this box went, the ones that are missing?
I do not.
So we're
They've
in
already
the
been used.
prop truck, and you have star-line brass, you have nickel primer, but they're not live, right?
Correct.
And you don't know when that box ended up getting to the prop truck, moved to the prop truck. You don't know any of that background, right?
Right.
You don't know if somebody placed that box with the handwriting on it into that Mary Kay bag. Do you?
No.
And on the prop truck that housed all the ammunition, was there any live ammunition on the prop truck?
No.
So I want to ask you something, Investigator Popple. Did that surprise you?
No, not necessarily.
Well, you've got all this, you're finding these live rounds all over the set, right?
Yes.
Sort of seem to be a little bit of everywhere without much cohesion between where you're finding them, right?
Yes.
And they're housed originally in the prop truck, right?
Yes.
And so you go a week later to the prop truck, which has all the
Oh.
ammunition, right?
I
Yes.
get it.
And there's not a single live round there, right?
During that week, people went through and made sure there wasn't any, is the insinuation.
Correct.
Why did law enforcement wait a week to go to the prop truck?
The search warrant needed to be written. I'm not sure of why the time difference occurred exactly.
You, well, I mean, the search warrant for the church that we talked about on the 21st, you guys were able to do in one day, right? The same day that the incident happened, you did the search warrant on the church, right?
We did it the next day.
Well, you got the warrant on the 21st, you did it the 22nd. Is
Correct.
that fair?
Yes.
I apologize. So if you could do a search warrant in one day for one thing, why does it take 7 days to do a search warrant for something else?
I do not know the circumstances of why there was that time frame.
And so on direct examination, you pointed out that, and this is States 30. You said that these were the Seth Kenny dummies in the box, right?
Yes.
And you talked about that a bit on direct examination, right?
Correct.
And I think you were making a point that Seth Kenny's dummies look a little bit different than the live ammunition found on set. So perhaps there was a way to distinguish them. Was that the import of your testimony?
Yes.
But if you look at the picture of the Seth Kenny box as it's being opened, right? How many rounds are in there?
So there are 17.
So then how do you explain why there's more rounds in your picture of those dummies taken out of the box?
If I can refer to my report to refresh my memory.
It's fine with me, Ron. It is, Ron. Were you able to refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Do you have an explanation for that?
Yes. So I apologize. The photo that was just up of the 22 rounds were actually removed from a bandolier that was located inside of the prop truck.
Defense A26, right?
Yes.
And it has the exact number as the picture you showed the jury, right?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, the real picture of the ammunition that comes out of Seth Kenny's box is this one, A27, right?
Yes.
And I saw you counting.
I just wanted to make sure the number of rounds.
Fair enough. No, I think that's a good way to that's how I figured that. That's from the right one, right?
Yes.
And there's something important about this picture, isn't there?
Yes.
There's a questionable round, maybe.
Doesn't that Seth Kenny round look exactly like the live round?
Under a camera flash, I suppose it could.
Well, I don't know about suppose it could. I mean, we'll look at the showcasing, Exhibit 28. Then we'll go back. 827. You can go back. States 28. Don't you think they look an awful lot alike?
They look similar, yes, but I can still see differences.
Well, I mean, you're a trained investigator, right?
I'm trained crime scene tech, yes,
Even more than an investigator or crime scene tech, right?
correct.
You have your Nikon 700 flash in your camera, right?
Yes,
You have the opportunity to take this ammunition back to the precinct, lay it out, and photograph it, right?
yes.
You have no reason to think anybody on the set of Rust was able to do that, do you?
No.
You turned in your report in this investigation. Hancock signed off on it, correct?
My supervisor signed off on my report.
Sergeant Zuck?
At the time, yes.
So we're still on the topic of the ammunition, and you and law enforcement were trying to figure out the source of the live ammunition, correct?
Yes,
In fact, it was incumbent upon you to try to find the source, because if there were people sending live ammunition to movie sets, that would be very dangerous condition, wouldn't it?
yes.
And as you were going about your search, Seth Kenny actually walked into the precinct one day and gave you ammunition, right?
Yes,
Okay, you remember that, right?
I do.
That was. Did you think Mr. Kenny was being helpful?
I believe so, yes.
I mean, were you suspicious of all of that?
That was not my place to be suspicious of him. I hadn't had much interaction with him.
Yeah, I mean, it may not have been your place to, but I'm just asking you if after this point, Seth Kenny, comes knocking on the precinct and shows you all some rounds, whether or not that
Asked and answered.
I don't know what it was.
Overruled.
I'm just asking whether it's your place to be or not. I'm just asking when the man showed up and just presented ammunition to the precinct, did that make you suspicious at all?
No.
Well, let me ask you this. I bet it didn't surprise you that he didn't turn in the exact matching lethal ammunition, did it?
No, I wasn't surprised by that.
Okay. And so what he turned in, and now you have your report there if you need to refresh, but he walks into the precinct, and this is Seth Kenny.
So I don't like how he hounds the witness.
And he gives you two different types of shell casings or ammunition, right? He gives you Starline brass. He gives you spent shell casings, right?
Yes,
And those were Starline brass, nickel primer, but they weren't live, right? They had been shot and they were spent shell casings, right?
if I can refer to my report to refresh. I don't recall if any of them were Starling brass.
If you turn to the last page,
Is there a specific item number that you're referring to?
item set, I think 215. You're going to be better at determining these reports than me.
Yes,
Okay. And he brought you, again, he also gave you live ammunition with nickel primers, but they weren't Starlight brass, right?
yes,
So he just seems to have, he just missed sort of on what you were looking for, right?
yes.
Because you were,
Yeah, objection to the form of question. She doesn't know what Seth Kenny's motives are.
No, I don't, I don't.
What he's
Overruled.
I mean, you know that if Seth Kenny provided the live ammunition to the set, that's worse for Seth Kenny, right?
It's worse for whoever provided it. Yes,
I agree. So, but as members of law enforcement, you all know that the person who provided that would have a motive to not be found, true?
yes,
So you headed to execute a search warrant at Seth Kenny's prop house, right?
yes,
And a judge signed off on that search warrant, correct?
Yes.
because you had probable cause to believe that there was live ammunition that matched the ammunition that killed Miss Hutchins, right?
Yes.
But they never found it.
And this was you, and again, Detective Hancock and Sergeant Zook, right?
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you, how come you executed the search warrant at night?
I don't recall.
And I wanted to ask you, how come Detective Khanna waits outside?
I don't believe that Detective Kano was there the entirety of the search warrant.
So, well, while he was there, do you know why? Do you have any information as to why he didn't come inside?
I do not.
Before you went on the search, you discussed it with Detective Hancock, correct?
Yes.
And just like the truck we talked about, you all had done nothing to secure this prop house while before you got the search warrant, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And tell the jury, how long did you wait to execute the search warrant at the prop house?
I don't recall.
Well, on direct examination, you knew the dates right away. Don't you remember? You nailed it.
Oh,
10/27, November 30th. Right?
I apologize. I thought you were asking from when it was written to when it was executed.
Oh, no, I apologize. Yes.
We executed the search warrant on November 30th.
Okay. So that was a month and a week, at least, right? After the incident in question.
Yes.
And just like the truck, you're executing the search warrant, and who was there to help you?
Seth Kenny.
And
It
your
was
purpose
this place.
was to find the matching ammunition, correct?
Our purpose was to locate any 45 caliber live ammunition.
Well, sure, but the ultimate investigation that you all were conducting was to try to solve the open question of how the lethal round got on a movie set, right?
Yes.
And you talked a little bit about this when we talked about the prop cart, how the disorganization of it could lead to commingling, right?
Yes.
How was the organization of the prop house?
Some things were organized and some were not.
Well, if you could give us a sense, did you find it to be more organized than the cart or less organized than the cart?
I would say they're probably about equal.
And you knew, did you not, that a dummy round can be turned into a live round and a live round can be turned into a dummy round, correct?
Yes.
So a person with spent shell casings or dummies, they could reuse them, correct?
Yes.
That would be economically efficient.
Yes.
And you knew as you enter this search that some of the ammunition on the set of Rust definitely came from Seth Kenny, right?
Yes.
He admitted that, right?
Correct.
There were invoices he didn't have much of a choice, correct?
Yes.
And you were also looking for tools that could be used to manufacture dummies and live ammunition, correct?
Yes.
And you were also looking for a green ammo can, correct?
Yes.
You know, the white boxes that we keep looking at are, they look like each other, right?
Correct.
A green ammo can is a more unique item, fair?
Yes.
So why don't you tell the jury why you were looking for a green ammo can?
I don't recall specifically, other than at some point in time it had housed live rounds.
And law enforcement had that information at the time of going to a judge to get the search warrant, and very much at the time that they were executing the warrant, right?
Yes.
And I don't want to belabor the white box conversation too much, but other than, find it too, on the white boxes that you found at the set, and at the white boxes that you saw a lot of at Seth Kenny's, there were these initials in the middle of the white box. It said JS. Right? I'll just show you A2. Yeah. Right, that you found at the scene, correct?
Yes.
And if we look inside the Seth Kenny's prop house, A18, you see very similar font and signage, correct?
Yes.
She must be a
And
relation.
as you continue on in your search, you understood Seth Kenny was a person of interest, correct?
Yes.
And this was an important moment in the case, correct?
Yes.
And you even found out that the day before Seth Kenny provided the dummies to Rust, he had in his possession live Starline brass nickel primer from 1883, correct?
I don't recall it being the day before or having that information personally.
Well, so let's leave the day before right now. You knew and understood that Seth Kenny had recently been in possession of Starline brass nickel primer live, correct?
I don't know that it was that specific, just that he was in possession of live ammunition in a recent point.
Now, when you testified on direct examination, you told the jury about how you found some live ammo at the prop house, right?
Yes.
And how you took that live ammo and sent it to the FBI, right?
Yes.
And you sent the live ammo from the set of Rust to the FBI, right?
Yes.
And you're not an FBI agent, but what you told the jury was that when you compared the powder from the set of Rust's ammunition to Seth Kenny's live ammunition,
Wasn't the same.
they didn't look the same, right?
Correct.
And you testified previously. Well, let me just ask you: did you take all of the 45 live ammunition from PDQ into evidence?
Yes.
And did you search every single box inside of Seth Kenny's prop house?
Yes.
And because you did that, according is this still what's that? Did I do something? Or it just goes to sleep. Talking too much. And because you've told this jury now that you found every 45 live ammo there, correct?
Yes.
And that you searched every single box, correct?
Yes.
What you're telling this jury is they can be sure that if there was a live round on there that matched the set of Rust, you would have found it, right?
Yes.
Let's take a look at A19. Is that one of the rooms inside of the prop house?
Yes.
You see those boxes packed all the way to the ceiling?
Yes.
Did you all have a ladder or anything when you guys were searching?
No.
Okay. So we agree that you didn't search the boxes at the top?
I believe they were taken down or at least looked into. It was not just myself searching.
Right, well, we talked about it. It was Kana was outside. It was you and Hancock and Zook, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, tell the jury. I mean, did you or did you not search every single one of those boxes?
We searched the entirety of the property. Yes.
Well, what do you mean when you say that you searched the entirety of the property?
I mean, if a box is opened and it is clear that there's no ammunition in it, meaning if I open a box and it's all clothing and I look at the bottom of the box and it's all clothing, then we're not going to dump the box out on the floor and continue to shake it until rounds that aren't in there fall out.
But okay, sure. Were there any boxes like that?
There were a multitude of boxes.
Got it. So, are you telling this jury that you're on your oath that you searched every single box in this room? That's just all I want to know.
Not me personally. Our team reasonably searched the warehouse.
Okay, and I think we're getting closer to when you say reasonably searched. What do you mean by that?
I mean, how would you approach searching this kind of area?
Well, I can tell you that law enforcement. I know from the movies. Okay, I'll move on. Well, why don't you tell me what's a grid search?
A grid search is usually conducted outside, where you would reasonably set up in a way that you could grid an area and then search each section on that grid.
Okay, and well, why don't you tell me what would have been if you wanted to be certain the best way to search this room if you had unlimited resources in time?
I believe that when we searched this room, we divided the room in order for it to be searched.
Divided it how?
Meaning myself took one section, Sergeant Zook took another section, Detective Hancock took another section.
Are you certain of that, or are you best estimate that that's what your memory tells you?
I do not recall exactly how the room was searched.
Okay, and then let's say you open up a box with ammunition. How would you search an individual box?
It would depend on the box.
So tell me.
If we open a box and it's all 38s, we're not looking for 38s at that time, we're looking for 45s.
Okay. And so if you opened up a box and it was commingled rounds, how would you do it?
We would have to go through those rounds individually.
Right, and there were boxes like that here, right?
There were a few, yes.
Okay. And how many rooms were there inside of this location that had lots of boxes in them?
There was the back room that we see here. There was a front room that didn't have many boxes, and then a side room that had nicely organized boxes.
And what about the bathroom? Weren't there boxes and ammunition in the bathroom?
There were boxes in the bathroom, yes.
So 4 rooms, right?
Yes.
3 of you, 4 rooms, right?
Yes.
80-20. What are we looking at here, Investigator Fowler?
This was a table that was located in the side room.
Okay. And what do you notice? I don't know why the arrow's there. What do you notice on this? It's probably because of me. What do you notice on this table of? What's on this table? What is this?
There were plastic bags, tools, cleaning products, tape.
Okay. And as we talked about before, the search warrant told you to look for tools, right?
Yes.
Okay. And Detective Hancock spent some time in this room during the search, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
And Do you know what all these tools are? Do you familiarity with these tools?
I'm not. No.
Okay. You don't know what they can be done. You don't know how they can be used with either firearms or ammunition, do you?
No.
Okay. So tell the members of the jury which of these tools you seized.
We did not take any tools from the warehouse.
When you were searching this area, did you have a schematic or a floor plan?
No, I don't believe so.
Did you go one room at a time or did you split up?
I don't recall.
Was there a predetermined plan of how to search this and to confirm that there were no further live bullets?
The predetermined plan was that I went in myself first and did overall photographs of everything in place, and then we conducted the search.
Did you do those letters like we saw in the prop truck so you could keep track of everything? Remember when we were looking in the church that there were those letters up so that you could sort of keep track and make sure you got everything? Did you use those letters?
No, I did not.
And of course, Seth Kenny was there and being helpful again, right?
Yes.
He told you that there were no 45 long Colts there and offered to show you the dummy rounds at one point. Do you remember that?
I don't recall that.
Do you remember him saying, I bet you $1,000 there's no 45 long Colts in there?
I do recall that, yes.
Okay. And did he win the bet?
He did not.
He lost the bet. So he tells you that, and law enforcement continues, and you look in the bathroom, and you found him, right?
Yes.
Let me ask you something. At any point, did you become suspicious of Seth Kenny?
No.
A21. You were able to find this container that says live ammo on it, right?
Yes.
And that was helpful to whoever wrote that to show you where the live ammo was, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the reasons you looked in that bin. Somebody labeled it live, right?
Well, we were looking in all of those bins, yes.
Every single,
I believe there was camera equipment stacked on top of it.
right?
And when they're opened and you see that it's camera equipment, we close it back up and went to the box on the bottom that stated there was live ammo in.
Doesn't this handwriting and label look kind of like that dummy round label we saw on the box that had that round you and I looked at? States 19.
Yes, it is similar, yes.
And that box that had the live rounds in it, there were a couple things that you found at PDQ. This handwriting is getting worse. Right? At PDQ, you found, and that's the prop house. That's the name of the prop house, right?
Yes.
Okay. You found, bless you, Starline Brass Live. No nickel. And you found Starline, you found nickel primer lives. No Starline Brass, right?
Correct.
Excuse me.
Every time you were with Seth Kenny, you got close to finding something that matched the scene, Starline Brass, nickel primer live, but it was always one off, wasn't it?
Yes.
And as you continued on your search, you found the green ammo can, right?
Yes.
And again, it was helpfully labeled, right?
Yes, I believe it was behind that box. You weren't able to obviously see it.
I see. But it also had a helpful label on it, didn't it?
Yes.
It said empty, right?
Yes.
And it looks a lot like the handwriting in States 19 and the helpful handwriting in A21.
They're
says
pointing
live.
the finger at Seth Kenny, I think.
And it was taking a long time to go through those boxes, wasn't it?
Yes.
And Detective Hancock was wearing her lapel camera, right?
I believe so, yes.
Have you reviewed that camera?
I have not.
You remember you and you said to Detective Hancock, this is taking a long time. We really need a spot that.
Objection relevance?
What's relevant?
The-
What's
the- the
relevant?
relevance
Does
is
it have
that
any
it's-
more tendency to,
Sure.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
Okay. Did you and Detective Hancock start joking around that it was going to take too long to search every box?
I don't recall that.
Do you deny it?
No.
And there are times in this search where you pick up a box and you just shake the whole box, right?
I don't recall that.
Can we play that video?
I'm confused. Is he refreshing or is he impeaching?
It doesn't matter. It's just a video. It's not a statement.
No, it does matter because she said she doesn't recall.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Do you deny you in parts of your search, just picking up a box and shaking it to see if it shook or not? Do you deny that?
No.
And so, but if you shook an entire box to see if it had a rattle in it, you wouldn't be able to be sure whether or not every single live round, it was all live rounds or a commingled group, correct?
Correct.
In fact, that's the entire basis of the case of what you believe the armor agent would have done. Commingled, live, and dummies, right?
Yes.
And yet at the search being conducted to find the source of the lethal round, law enforcement is doing the very same thing that you're complaining about the armorer doing on the set, right?
Yes.
And when you left that search, you are not, as you sit here, sure you got every live round, are you?
No.
And actually, if you look at the boxes inside of that location, you didn't even search half of them. Did you?
What?
I don't recall.
So then why on direct examination, if you do not recall, did the prosecutor ask you and you tell this jury that you were confirming that you searched and found every single live round? Why did you testify to that?
I found what I believe to be all the live rounds at the warehouse.
But that's not what you said. What you said was that you found every live round, right?
I don't recall the exact words that I stated.
Well, you certainly said that you searched every single box just 10 minutes ago in front of this jury, right?
I believe that a reasonable search was conducted of the warehouse.
An investigator, I understand. You were prepped before you testified today, correct?
I spoke with the prosecution before I testified yesterday.
Okay. And the jury heard something about pre-trial interviews where you're interviewed and the defense can be there to watch you be interviewed, right?
Yes.
But every time you talk to the prosecutors, defense is not there, correct?
Correct.
In fact, the vast majority of times you speak to the prosecutors, the defense is not there, correct?
Correct.
In fact, you and I had never met before today, or yesterday, I guess, correct?
Yes.
She's part of the conspiracy, don't you know?
You just said, when you originally said that you searched every box, okay, that itself is not accurate, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now what you're saying is that you did a reasonable search, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing that the search warrant asked you to take was the cameras and the camera equipment, the surveillance footage from PDQ, right?
I don't recall that.
Okay. I'm going to pass up the warrant to refresh your recollection. Well, do you recall that there was camera equipment there?
There was lots of camera equipment inside of the warehouse.
In fact, you remember Seth Kenny showed you the camera equipment, right?
I don't recall exactly.
Okay, I'm just going to mark this as defense Z and just approach this equipment.
I'm sorry, is that still frame? Oh, yeah, sure.
Are you going to mark that? Well, she's going to identify it and then you're going to.
Just because he's refreshed. Does that refresh your recollection about the?
No, it doesn't.
Take it back. And I'm going to pass you the warrant and ask you, this is DX23, if this refreshes your recollection of if you were supposed to. Yes.
What?
Yes, Your Honor, DX23. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I need to know.
No, I need to refresh.
it's just a refresh. I can make it DX
So,
and
why are we marking it?
Yeah,
It's
why are
just
we marking
needs to refresh.
then I will mark it.
Yes.
Marked.
Yes.
Okay. Not seeking to introduce this. I'm just simply asking, does this refresh your recollection that the warrant commanded you to take the video footage?
Commanded you? Gave you permission to?
Number 6.
She can refresh her memory without being directed.
Of surveillance footage, yes.
Okay. And so, can you tell the jury, did you take the surveillance footage?
No.
You didn't take the surveillance footage, even though that footage could have shown when people came and left the prop house, correct?
I don't recall if there was surveillance footage.
And the photograph of Mr. Kenny showing the surveillance footage didn't refresh your memory?
No, because I'm standing in the foreground of that photo.
Okay, well, tell the members of the jury what you did to search for surveillance videos that satisfied you that you had complied with the warrant's order. Tell the jury.
I don't recall looking for surveillance footage.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Because you didn't, right?
I don't recall.
But if you did, it would be on the lapel cameras of Detective Hancock and Sergeant Suck, right?
Yes.
And so if it's not on the lapel cameras of Detective Hancock and Sergeant Suck, you would agree with me it didn't happen, right?
Not precisely. They don't follow me around the entire time, and I don't wear a lapel, so it could have not been captured.
But you're not telling this jury that you looked for it, right?
I'm saying that I don't recall looking for it.
And if you had taken that footage, if any there were, right, you agree with me that it would have shown when people were coming and going from the prop house, potentially, correct?
That's a possibility, yes.
It's a possibility you could have seen when the ammo cam got there, right?
Possibly, yes.
You could have seen Sarah Zachary picking up the ammunition, correct?
Possibly, yes.
You could have seen Seth Kenny disposing of ammunition in the 40 days between when the incident happened and when you arrived, correct?
Possibly, yes.
And there's one other thing that it would have shown, isn't there?
I don't know.
Well, it would have shown whether or not you all really searched the place, wouldn't it?
Possibly, yes.
And so you didn't take it. You did not voucher any of the surveillance footage.
I do
correct?
not recall looking for the surveillance footage.
Well, again, I know that answer, but you know what you vouchered in this case, correct?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
You didn't take into your custody and add to the evidence any surveillance footage, correct?
No.
And you never spoke to any witnesses, you yourself, about what you found at PDQ later, did you?
No.
And you testified on direct examination that you did collect DNA, phones, prints, things like that in this case, right?
Yes.
And you got the armorer, the first assistant director, Dave Hall's, Sarah Zachary, and Alec Baldwin's phones, right?
I did not. I don't believe so.
You ultimately vouchered?
I would have to refer to my report. I don't believe I collected all of those things.
Okay. What about DNA extractions?
I did collect DNA swabs from certain individuals, yes.
Okay. Including Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, Dave Halls, Sarah Zachary, Alec Baldwin?
Not Alec Baldwin, but the rest.
Okay. And what about prints, fingerprints?
Yes.
Okay. From Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, Dave Halls, Sarah Zachary?
Yes.
Did you take the cell phone of Seth Kennedy?
I don't believe so, no.
Did you take the prints of Seth Kennedy?
No.
Did you take the DNA of Seth Kennedy?
No.
Everything that you did take into your custody, in law enforcement's custody in this case, is in your supplemental report. Is that fair?
Yes.
And most importantly of all, it's your testimony you never were able to discover the source of the live ammunition, correct?
I don't believe that's in my supplemental report. I'm not sure how you're phrasing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. I'm asking you. When we started, we were talking about solving this question of how a live round got a movie set. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm asking you, trying to solve that question, did you ever solve it?
I do not have any physical evidence to show where the live rounds originated from.
And I was asking you questions earlier about how come the search happened tonight, right?
Yes.
Do you remember?
I don't recall.
Okay. Why Detective Connor stood outside?
I don't recall.
Isn't the truth that you were just trying to get this over with so that the prosecutors could focus on Alec Baldwin?
No.
You personally believe Alec Baldwin committed no crime. Isn't that the truth?
No.
Your Honor, please, can we approach?
He's eliciting
Don't do that.
information.
I'm going to strike that question, okay? I'm going to strike the question, you're going to disregard it, okay, and the answer.
There is zero evidence in this case that Alec Baldwin brought a live round on set, correct?
Correct.
There is zero evidence in this case that Alec Baldwin loaded that live round into that gun, right?
Correct.
And after this, and you turn to the next chapter of this case, is when the order came from you all, meaning you, the prosecutors, Detective.
Sorry to pause it here, but my doggie is crossing all four legs. So I'll be right back. Okay, she's back finally. And we're on.
Hancock, to order the testing on the firearm, right?
I'm sorry. Can you
Sure.
repeat that?
Wasn't
I'm going to back that up.
you all. And after this, and you turn to the next chapter of this case, is when the the order came from you all, meaning you, the prosecutors, Detective Hancock, to order the testing on the firearm, right?
I'm sorry, can you
Sure.
repeat that?
Wasn't a good question. As this case moved forward, after what we just discussed, you, Detective Hancock, and the prosecutors, made the request to the FBI to order the accidental discharge test, right?
I don't recall when that request was made exactly.
Well, forget exactly when it was made. Do you have any general recollection?
I don't.
Okay. Are you testifying that you don't know whether it was after the PDQ search?
I don't recall.
And at that time, when that test was ordered, you knew that Mr. Baldwin had told you that he had just pulled the hammer of the gun and not the trigger, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. I'm going to refresh your recollection. I need to find it. And while I'm doing that, you did assist in the taking of the firearm withdrawal. You were involved in the requests coming from the team, right? I'm referring to you, the prosecutors, Detective Hancock, right? You understand when I say team, what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. You were involved in the request from the team to the FBI about what tests to order throughout this case. Is that true?
Yes.
And these were very much group decisions that you made of what you would test, fair?
Yes.
And everywhere in this case that you went, Detective Hancock went, right?
Yes.
So when you were at the church, the day that it happened, Detective Hancock was there, right?
Yes.
And then, when you were at the truck search, she was there, right?
Yes.
In the precinct with Seth Kennedy, she was there, right?
Yes.
At the PDQ search, she was there, right?
Yes.
And every time something happened in this case, you all would meet with the prosecutors and keep them updated, correct?
Occasionally, yes.
Well, when you say occasionally, Investigator Powell, what do you mean by occasionally?
I mean that I was not always in direct contact with them about every single thing that would occur.
I'm going to approach and show the witness. Yes, she has a copy.
Well, she doesn't know.
What you're looking at, I don't know what mine you're looking at. You told me I have a copy. I'm assuming it's the previous transcript.
It is, again,
Page
it's
and line, please.
the body worn camera, 10/21/21.
Page and line, please.
Page 3, line 1.
Same objection, Your Honor.
What is it?
Ms. Popple is not Ms. Popple is not in this transcript.
She
Well,
was
he's what are you doing? Asking her to refresh
there.
her memory?
She was there. I'm asking if it refreshes her recollection.
Overruled.
No. I'm saying,
Does that refresh your recollection about what Mr. Baldwin told you at the scene?
Not particularly.
Okay. Would it be helpful if you saw the video from the lapel camera of you and Mr. Baldwin at the scene and listened to it? Would that be helpful?
No.
That wouldn't be helpful to you, Investigator Powell?
I'm not denying that these statements were made, but I do not recall all of the information that was being stated at that time.
I understand that, but you're here to do your best, right?
Yes.
And you want to be fair to Mr. Baldwin, right?
Yes.
So you don't know that if I show you the video of you at the scene, it won't refresh your recollection?
argumentative. Objection, Your Honor. Argumentative. Battering the witness. She hasn't lived this 24 hours a day like you guys have.
Investigator Popple, are you willing to watch the body worn camera, the lapel from 10/21 to refresh your recollection at a break?
Yes.
Yeah. And you would agree with me, it may refresh your recollection, sure?
Yes.
And whatever information you had from Mr. Baldwin at the time, well, let me ask you this. Which one? Did you tell Mr. Baldwin, don't worry, we're going to find the source of the live ammunition, or words to that effect?
I don't recall stating that.
You don't deny it, though, do you?
No.
You and the team end up ordering the accidental discharge test. I think you called it the drop test on the firearm in question, right?
Yes.
And when you all ordered that test, the FBI told you that this test may very well destroy the gun, right?
I don't recall that.
Okay, well, let's, I can't put anything on her screen. I'm going to show you an email in a minute. But you do agree with me that you were involved in the team's decision to send that firearm off to the FBI for that testing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. That firearm that you told me earlier in my examination was something that you were entrusted to keep track of and to protect,
And
right?
you didn't protect it.
A piece of evidence that you knew was critical in this case, correct?
Yes.
And the FBI told you in no uncertain terms that if they do this test on the firearm, it would alter the condition of the firearm,
It
correct?
could.
I don't recall that.
Okay. We're going to pass up an email to you because I can't show you on the screen, I don't think. You can? Okay. We can show you on the screen, apparently. Because I understand.
Is there a reason you can't just walk up and just?
Well, I
You
don't
can find it. Listen, you can look at it too. So just come up here before,
I have it, right? Okay, we have it.
they have it.
Are we doing it?
I'm just going to pass up.
Okay, but I need to look.
It's just, you don't see it.
No, there's a.
He is so discourteous.
Yeah.
Hey,
Wait,
I
she
have not
has to-
reviewed this. Okay, can I have a second?
Yes.
I hope the other jurors are feeling the same way I am.
What's the portion that you expect to refresh your memory?
She's on the email.
Yeah, but what's, right, what is the portion of the email that you expect to request to refresh your memory?
Do you all want to be on the recording for this? Let's just,
Point out to me how this is
Well,
supposed to
first of all,
refresh your memory.
just, if she can look at the whole document and see if it refreshes her memory, okay?
exactly what I was
Move
gonna
on.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do, Your Honor.
And you see your email address on that email?
Yes, I do.
Let her, see if she can refresh her
Of
memory.
course, I just wanted to point out your email.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he was going to talk her all the way through it. You see there, and you see there, and you see there, and you see there. You see? I'm right, right? You know how many emails she does in the course of a day? Receives, corresponds with?
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Take it back. Thank you.
Thank you. And it is true, right? You're on this email, correct?
Yes.
And on April 21st, 2022, which is after the search of the prop house, you and the team sent the firearm for testing at the FBI, correct?
Yes.
I apologize. I think I've been handed the wrong thing. Can we approach?
You can have my copy. I'll take yours then.
Hang on. We need to approach. May we approach?
Yes.
Here's the thing. That's going to be one of my t-shirts. Here's the thing. Now I forget what the thing is. That should be a t-shirt too. In the course of determining whether it was a faulty hammer or trigger or whatever, They went through a series of tests. There was one more test they could do, and that was the drop test, where impact, would that have set it off? In the course of proving Baldwin's theory and claim, to support his theory and claim, that test had to be done. So why are they upset? Because it didn't prove the point that they wanted it to. There was nothing wrong with that gun. That's the bottom line. There was a series of tests. Well, okay, it works this way. It works this way. It works this way. It works this way. There's one more test we can do, but it may damage the gun. We'll do it. We're trying to prove Baldwin's theory of what happened. And the only thing left was where it would be blunt force. Like if it dropped, if it fell on the ground, would it discharge? And it didn't. It didn't. So now they're going to claim where they went too far, because now the defense can't do anything with that gun. That's what they're pissed off about. And they have no right to be. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Sorry for the interruption. I'm going to ask the court reporter to read back the exact same question. Please.
And on April 21st, 2022, which is after the search. Oh, I'm so sorry. And on April 21st, 2022, which is after the search of the prop house, you and the team sent the firearm for testing at the FBI, correct? Yes.
And that was truthful testimony and accurate testimony that you just gave, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that you sent it to the FBI for accidental discharge testing, which I believe you discussed on your direct examination, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay. So at the time you did that, you knew that the testing would cause this firearm.
Sorry.
She doesn't, prosecutor doesn't let anything get by her. She's what kind of dog? She's a hound dog about it. I mean, she gets a hold of it and she ain't letting go.
At the time that this testing was ordered, you knew that the firearm would no longer be in the same physical condition you recovered it in, correct?
Yes.
Let's take a break. Thank you.
All right, we're going to take our lunch break. Please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court, and please don't come back until 2 o'clock. Okay? 2.
All rise for the jury. Jurors, please take your hazard.
All right, we're
Let's see if she says anything before they. I'm ordering pizza for lunch. See if she says anything before they.
all right. We're in recess. Counsel approach.
Your Honor, as I indicated,
Housekeeping.
yeah, as I indicated, we're just going to provide a laptop to investigate the break. Thank you.
See you at 2 o'clock. Actually, you're probably going to.
Okay. Well, that answers that. Okay. Well, they're off on break. I have no idea when my break is going to come in, but that's okay. Oh my God. That guy is a handful. Is there always going to be somebody that grates in these trials? Okay. This poor witness, she's being battered. Well, we're still talking about where did these live rounds come from, and I understand that that's a concern. A theory was that some of them may have come from the set of 1883 because Seth Green, is that his name? Whatever his name is. I can't find it now. Anyway, from his prop house, he had sent live rounds as well. So live and dummy rounds came back from 1883. Did they get commingled, and did some of them get sent to the set of Rust? I mean, that's what they're trying to figure out, because he wasn't all that great about keeping things particular everywhere. And neither was Hannah Gutierrez with the truck and the cart. They weren't real good at keeping it segregated and organized. I would love to see pictures from other sets to see if it's common that things get, especially in the course of doing shooting and stuff like that, and then after the shooting, then maybe it gets reorganized. Who knows? We never got that far. So I think they're biting off they're cutting off they're spiting their nose. They're cutting their nose to spite their face. What is that term? Anyway, this is what Baldwin said happened. So they're trying to figure out, is this what happened? Would you rather they just ignored that whole possibility? Then he'd be up there going, well, why wasn't it tested? Why didn't you test it? I need a drink. So again, this poor lady, witness number 4. I still don't know how you spell her name for sure. He called, captions called her Bubble. It's Popple. But it did sound like he said that. He's trying to put too much on her plate that she's not responsible for. Hey, my pizza's in the oven. Yay! Okay. Anyway, let's go have something to eat. And maybe we'll catch up with you again on the other side of the lunch break. I hope we do. If not, when you get a chance. It's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. I thought of this earlier. The guy in the blue shirt from yesterday on all the first assistant director, David Hall. He was the one in the blue shirt yesterday. We saw evidence of him breaking down and crying and being shook up. And if I'm not mistaken, he admitted to his part and got reduced punishment, if you want to put it that way. He acknowledged his part in it. No, I didn't fully check that round. That last time, I did not fully check it. From what was testified yesterday, the first 3 rounds but there was 3 more that they didn't check. And unfortunately, guess what? So he took responsibility for his actions. Hannah Gutierrez Reed took responsibility for her actions against her will, because there was a trial that found her guilty of her part in it. I don't think she took any kind of deal for reduced. I don't think. So 2 of the people involved took responsibility in one shape or another of their actions. Why doesn't Baldwin rate that? Why should he not take responsibility for being the one that pulled the trigger? If he had pulled the trigger and he wasn't pointing at anybody, nobody would be hurt. Everybody would go, oh my God, that was a live round. But he was doing stuff he wasn't supposed to. He was doing a fast draw, for one thing. He had his finger on the trigger and pulled it, for another. And he pointed it right at her, not off. You never point right at somebody, even filming. It's 3 things he did that contributed to the death of Helena Hutchins. And he should be held responsible too. Yeah, 2nd day in, I'm saying that. We will say goodbye for now. Hope you have a good one. And until the next time, take care and God bless.